All right, here we go.
Me.
You go.
Welcome. You're waiting just for that. Welcome to episode 64 of the Making Geeks podcast. We're the podcast for makers, dads, and geeks. Today we have Mr. Josh Price with us,
Hello, everybody.
Mr. Mark O'Keefe,
Hello.
Mr. Wes Swain,
Good evening.
and I am Sean Jolliker. Hey guys, what's up? Seems like it's been a while since I've just seen the three of you on my computer screen here.
It's been a little
Hey,
crowded,
we're-
huh?
We were
Yeah.
one guest short of a month of makers.
I
We'll try
tried.
better next year.
I tried. I got one for next week, but that doesn't really help
Really?
us. Yeah, possibly.
Tell them to bring some tacos or something.
I will.
I am going to make bandsaw burritos if it kills me.
Well, hopefully it doesn't go that far, but
Chainsaw churros.
I'd actually like to take credit for our podcast helping out Keith Decent get to 10,000
That's what I'm Yeah.
followers on
Yeah.
Instagram.
Yep,
It's
it was
the
all us.
Yep.
I think it was all us.
Making
It's
Geeks
all
bump.
us. Keith had nothing to do with it.
Not that he didn't put out a really cool project at all that helped him get there, but
That last light one was really cool though.
You're welcome.
He's been killing it lately.
Although I
Well,
feel bad for him because almost immediately after it goes viral, he comes out with the post. Somebody stole that video and put it out there with no links to me. If you see it, could you let me know?
we'll put a link with proper credit in the show notes, so make sure to check it out.
Yeah.
Good for him.
When he first put it out, though, I thought it was like some kind of weird city, like Scrapwood cityscape or something. Because the way the art, the spikes on it look, that was really cool though. Either way.
I liked it. Did you see the shelf he's making with the bent Corian?
Oh, is that what that is?
Yeah, I just saw that on
That's
Instagram.
pretty. That was a smart move.
I want to get some soapstone because apparently, like aluminum, you can work on that with wood tools.
Sounds
I
with
think so.
Just need I would guess you'd need a better dust mask.
Yeah, I think so. Isn't it like alabaster?
Yeah, alabaster you can work with the turning tools, but yeah, it's the same thing.
Yeah.
You need some dust protection.
Yep.
Hear that, RZ masks? Let's go.
I just contacted them about something else, so I'm hoping to hear back from them.
I'm willing to sell myself for you.
I just used one for the first time the other day. I had my dust mask I am one of those people that like to use a dust mask, and I never really liked it because, your beard's in the way. It's got like way too many straps, and if I'm working, I'll have like my dust mask and then hearing protection and probably like some headphones in, and there's just way too much crap like
you
on
have
my head.
too many cranial accessories.
Yeah, and I can't remember in which order I applied them. So if I go to take something off,
You
it's just
take
like
one
I'm
off,
still
you get
plugged
spaghetti.
in. I'm like, ah. But no, that mask, it was.
See, I wanna try one of them for two reasons. One, if I wear my normal, I think it was the mask that Pachuto has, the little like the mini
Yeah, that's
respirator.
the one I have. Yeah, the one
With
that looks like the Joker's from the original Batman.
Yes, yeah, that one.
That one.
I like that one, but when I breathe out, sometimes it fogs up my glasses. And then I have, it's like the RZ mask, but it's not from them. And I got the biggest one they make, and when I do it, it squishes my nose. So I need to find something that fits and doesn't fog up my glasses.
For a while, I was using the old,
Or I should invest in contacts, but I don't like contacts.
for a while I was using the old surgical masks, in the workshop, and I take it off and have the lines
Yes.
indented across my face so. Well, we are looking for new sponsors, so maybe we'll tag them in this episode. So what have you guys been up to this week?
CNC Adventures.
Woohoo!
Yeah. I think I talked to you guys last time about finding a possible short in one of my wires for the Y stepper motor, one of the two. I got that resolved. It's running around beautifully. I've got my my electric guitar controlling it pretty much permanently now. I got it
I
hanging
remember
up, and I started working on a video. Hopefully, it's out by the time this comes out. And so that's kind of funny, using my Rock Band guitar. And I started thinking about all the other possible accessories. Like that idea could just be, as we sort of suggested last time, off air. It could be expanded upon in many different directions, like in many different ways. You know, not only different types of controllers to control the X-Carve / CNC or whatever, but also for the guitar to control things. But it'd be neat to do like a Power Glove thing, or maybe some other.
I want someone to make a Dance Revolution CNC machine.
I've got that too. I've got the pad in the closet. It crossed my mind. I thought of all those peripherals, like the Donkey Kong bongos, and like
I think
was it
the Super NES
Yeah.
missile launcher thing.
exactly?
I hated that thing.
No. I think we've just come across an idea for if you hook it up, the CNC machine up to the Dance Revolution thing, we found a new form of exercise that not only when you're done you've lost weight,
You've got a carving.
created a beautiful work of art.
Of abstract art, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Oh yeah,
It'd be cool if you could actually wire an Etch-a-Sketch to the CNC machine
that would be
and use
hilarious.
the knobs.
So cool.
I don't know how you do the Z,
Yeah.
but you can do the X and Y.
You just add a third knob.
Let's push the buttons. Push them down.
Click, click, click.
Yep.
Yeah, so I actually have been messing around with V-carve based or V-bit based inlays, where you carve the channel using a V-bit, and then you carve the plug mirrored so it fits in. Pretty snug. I got that mostly dialed in. Trying to use ArtCam for that, so there's no tutorials online because no one's really trying that. So I'm trying to be the first one for that. And what else?
Sounds like a winner for an extructible pretty soon.
Yeah, that'd be awesome.
Again.
And then I actually used the guitar to control, like when I had to cut the little plug out, I actually used it to control the rough cut to pop the piece out. So I was able, like playing the instrument basically to cut something out by hand. It was kind of neat.
Nice.
Yeah, so it's kind of fun. Starting to get somewhere finally on that. It's exciting.
When you do that video, you should have the sound overlaid from Close Encounters of the Third Kind.
That'd be hilarious, yeah. Gotta try to keep my videos simple. I always try to make it overly complicated, and it takes forever. So I'm trying to keep it simple. We'll see. I don't know if that's in my DNA.
Have you, Mark?
Not much. I kind of stalled out after the successful repair of the Form 1 last week. I do have to print. I was supposed to get a video of something I was printing for Wes, but then I was an idiot and turned the lights off because I don't do video. So I gotta redo a print so I can get some video of that and then send them off. But I gotta clean my alcohol first because it's disgusting. And we had a loss in the family, so this weekend is pretty much, for the most part, done. So hopefully next weekend I'll start back up and
Maker Faire weekend.
I don't get to go.
Yeah.
I was gonna go, but money and things, stuff. Should be a title of a book, Money and Things and Stuff. I don't know what it's about, but it just sounds like a book title. So, yeah, that's all I got. That and SolidWorks stuff, but nothing interesting. Josh?
I've been making stuff, and it's been great.
Nice.
You guys know that making things with your hands is like really, really fun.
Really? Wow.
I know, right?
Who knew?
You're onto
I
something.
know.
Do you like to make stuff?
That's pretty good. But yeah,
So,
we're
somebody give Bob $5.
Damn it.
Stupid
Here it is, Bob.
copyrights.
It's in the mail.
where was I last week? I think I was in West Virginia last week. So we left there, and now we're in Kentucky, and we were hanging out with Bob Claggett from I Like to Make Stuff. We're staying in the town that he lives in, and I've been helping out. I mean, we've talked about this before, so it's not some random weird creepy pop in. He's recently moved from Georgia to Kentucky, and so he's still making all of his content, but there's just like a bunch of projects, and when you move, there's just stuff everywhere, and for someone that makes something every single week and every day of that week is usually dedicated, like it's hard to do all the little ancillary tasks. So, excuse me. I was like, I can do that grunt work because I don't get to make stuff anymore, and you need somebody to help you do the little things. So let me do the little things, and it's been pretty awesome because he's like, I think I need this thing over there. And I was like, well, this is what I think it should be. And he's like, that sounds fine. And then he walks off, and then I get to work. It's been really nice, and he and I think a lot alike in our kind of your process. And so whenever he's not in the room, like he's got his shop set up, and I'm like, I need this thing. I'm like, I would put it over there. It's like if you ever go to like your friend's house or a stranger's house and you go in their kitchen and you need to find a cup, and you end up like opening 3/4 of the cabinets, or like where like, oh, my silverware would be in this drawer, but then they have like junk drawer or whatever. It's really kind of nice because where I would kind of point myself as to where his tools are, like they were pretty much over there. So it was kind of nice. And I helped him out on his Twitch stream the other day where I got to weld for the first time. So
Nice.
I think this is Sean. You've welded before, right?
No, I have not.
We had talked about this. I don't remember who had or who had not. But
I have not.
all right. It is fun, but really, really ugly. Like, it was my first time, so I don't know what I was expecting. But there are now many pieces of metal that are stuck together that were not stuck together before, so technically that's welding. Yeah, you can see, like, there's a learning curve, and it was really awesome. Yeah, Bob's super cool, and our family's been getting along. Our kids play. Our kids all know each other from when he lived in Georgia and I lived in Georgia, and it's just been really awesome. So they left to go to Maker Faire, ironically, today, and then we have some stuff that we want to do throughout kind of Kentucky. We go see some national parks and some caves and whatnot. So we're gonna hang out for a little while longer and go do family vacation-y kind of stuff while they're away, and then I think we might head back down further south. We're not sure yet. We're still kind of in limbo with a couple different potential jobs that have all just kind of popped up right around the same time that are geographically pretty inconvenient. So it's like if we head back down south, then we're just further away from all the things that we may need to turn around and go back to in a couple weeks. So we're still trying to figure out where we're going and what we're doing. But so is life as a traveling maker, I suppose. Sean, what you, buddy?
A couple different things. One, I fired off my first 3 emails to try to do some deals with some different companies with some potential product placement and or advertising. So I'm waiting to hear back from them. And I'm in between about 3 different projects right now. One is redoing a huge 1970s stereo cabinet that I found on the side of the road. I'm going to be turning that into primarily like a Lego storage cabinet, and maybe still doing something with music embedded into it also. Making a physical version of my logo, and what was the third thing? Building some sort of system in my garage to hide my X-Carve, just because I need to be able to get it out of the way when I need it out of the way. So just in between a bunch of different things right now, and trying to find time to actually make progress on all of them, just because work is a little bit more challenging this year. So I'm looking forward to this every week, just so I could kind of decompress from all the other stuff.
Yeah, how's all that going with your newer classes? We haven't really talked about that.
Computer science is going good. It's a little bit elementary, so I'm trying to push them a little bit faster. I only have 9 kids in the class, so that makes it nice. The video production I would like a lot better, except that they are all freshmen. And I think I've mentioned before that freshmen are barely people at times. So it's kind of trying to train them how to, behave in part of civilized society, and there's still a bunch of monkeys trying to grab for the top branch. So it is definitely just a period of training, even though, I care about the content and trying to get them interested, and it's a little bit of a challenge. But I only have those students for 9 weeks at a time, and then we rotate to a whole new group.
Hmm.
So then I have to train a whole new group of monkeys. So we'll see how that goes.
What's that old saying? You put enough typewriters in front of them, eventually you'll get Shakespeare.
I've never heard that.
No,
And
it's the if you take 1,000 monkeys and 1,000 typewriters over 1,000 years, you'll eventually get Shakespeare.
that's
You haven't heard that one?
I
never
don't.
heard that.
I might have,
Nope.
but I don't know.
I think we need to test that.
That would be a fun test.
But 1,000 years, I mean, that's a little excessive.
Adam Savage, hello. I got a myth for you to bust.
Bronx Zoo, we need to borrow some of your stuff.
It's a 1,000-year myth.
So they just want to do like, how do I shoot a vlog? Like, how do I put a YouTube video up? Is that the stuff they're kind of interested in? Or are they, like, what's their wheelhouse right now?
I can't even tell. You know, they're so squirrely. I can't really even get them to participate in a way for me to try to appeal to their interest. I'm slowly getting there. I've made some progress with them, but like next week they're gonna be doing storyboards. You know, I'm gonna try to get cameras into their hands for the first time. So we'll see how that goes. Yep.
Was this a class that was taught by a different person before, or is it new for your school?
It was taught for the first time last year.
Gotcha.
But one of the teachers that was like heading up the program had been
Yeah,
working for the school for 30 years and then left. So based on my experience with YouTube is kind of what got me into the job. So hopefully it'll kind of expand from there. Within about 2-3 years, I may not be teaching English anymore. We'll see.
Or you could
You-
retire next year if the last teacher is any indication.
No.
One
She-
year
she
with
was
the
there
new thing
30
and she's already gone.
No, she was there 30 years though. Big difference. I still have 20 more to go.
It's weird to think that way.
Yep. It
I had my buddy over before, and he's like, "Oh, I got to stay at my job for 9 more years. I'll hit 25 years." And I'm like, "God, have you been there that long?" It's like
You know, I think-
there's these little things that go through life that people say, and I'm like, "God, I'm old."
I think that's actually a pretty good segue into the kind of things that we want to talk about for today's episode, and looking at, you know, when you might need to pivot from what you've been doing for a career job, or maybe even wanting to pivot because things are getting old and stale, and you know maybe things don't look as bright in the future for where you are. So I think that's kind of the gist of what we were talking about before we started recording. So now how to
Yep.
start this off.
Yep.
So I'll go ahead. 'Cause, I mean, we've made the most drastic kind of changes here lately based on that whole sentiment that, my defense contracting job, that, again, they had the contract, which is unheard of in military contracting, they had that contract till 2080. So I could have very easily sat in that job, in that desk, until, I was barely breathing, and I would collect all of my 401k and the whole thing, and it would have been great. And that was super unappealing. Like, to just be in one place and do the same kind of stuff over and over and over again for that long, like, ugh. But since we've moved, like, I know that it's no surprise what it is that we're doing. We're traveling around the country in the RV, and when we did it, we started with our savings. So I get some disability from the military every month to supplement our income. But then we had just a bunch of savings because when we lived on base, we didn't have to pay for very much. And it was supposed to last us about 10 months, I think is the math that we did. And a couple weeks ago, we discovered that it wasn't going to last us 10 months. It was going to last us maybe about 6. So our big, like, it wasn't even nationwide, but our really big journey, like, had to be amended pretty quickly. And it was ironic, right around the same time, like, I know the one job that I was talking about earlier, like, reached out to me, and I was like, well, this is serendipity. Like, this is great because I need money now. And then a couple other things have kind of popped up, and so it's trying to figure out where to go. But my aversion to that, like, I don't want to be in a place forever, the idea of security on my priority list of, like, things that I'm engaged in, things I can feel productive in, and things I feel like I can make an impact, and then, like, job security is, I don't know, it's in the top something. It's not in the top 3. It won't place in any of the competition, but now it's a whole new priority when you're faced with like having nothing. And now, I don't know, I feel like I'm spoiled. And I think maybe all of us, I mean, I'm not saying you guys are spoiled, but like you just have, we had jobs. We had jobs you go to work and the income is there, and it may suck and you may be irritated with it, but it's, I don't know. I felt spoiled now. I'm like, I just walked away from this thing that was there, but it's, I know, Mark, we talked about before the show started, you know, it's the opportunities and things, but it's having to shift, it's having to pivot, and that shifting and that pivoting can feel like failure really quickly. So I don't know if you guys have had to shift or have had to pivot on something, but it's, I don't know, it hits you, it makes you reprioritize your life very, very quickly.
Yeah, no, I know I mean, I worked with a guy who said, you know, I like doing this, and the second I don't like doing this, I'll leave. But that's also hard to do when, I mean, right now I am one income of the 1.5 incomes of my house. So if I go down, that's trouble at that point. But that being said, would we recover? Yeah, of course, things would. I mean, things always change. That's life. You got to adapt or die. And I think we're all capable of adapting. It's just a matter of, you know, that comfort that, you know, I like my house, and I like being able to do some of the things that I can do. That being said, it's not much right now. Like for me, my job is becoming a little difficult just because I work the 4 10-hour days, and I don't really get to see my daughter that much during the week. And then trying to do anything with making, that's taking a day away from being with my family that I don't get all that often, because Tracy, when she does do the freelance stuff, she'll usually do that on a Thursday or a Friday. And it's just, time management's kind of difficult, and I've been trying to figure out a way to get more time back, but still have the money to support everything. And it's a really hard equation. You know, it's anywhere I go, I'm taking a huge hit in pay just because I've been here for so long in this type of work. I don't know how to program. I don't know how to build a website. I don't know a lot of this stuff, you know, and I don't have any official training in SolidWorks, so I can't go to a CNC shop and be like, oh, I can do anything you want, because I truly don't know if I can or not. So it's hard to gauge the skill level too of trying to pivot. You know, where can I go and still be stable, or if I go, do I have enough bullshit skills to pass? You know.
Well, that brings up an interesting point that I'm curious about. Sean, you've pivoted like dramatic career fields.
A lot,
Sounds like
yeah.
many times.
Yes.
So how, kind of going off what Mark is saying, how could you leverage the experience or the education you had in one particular field and transition that or have that be marketable in something that is completely unrelated? Or was it all just people that you knew?
No, not at all. It's kind of hard to explain. A lot of it had to do with almost like taking a leap of knowing that you'd be able to do something on the job, even if on paper you didn't have all the skills, but you don't let anybody else know that. And
imposter syndrome that Sarah talked about, kind of like that.
Yeah, it is, but it's also in a different way. And I'll give an example of how this happened. So, a couple of the major pivots that I made in life was basically I was, all about art and animation, and I dedicated my life to that for 6 to 7 years. But then when I was trying to get out in the field and get a full-time job doing it, there was a falling out in the industry during that time. And this is probably around 1999 to 2000. And I had to make it, had to make a huge pivot. I was about ready to get kicked out of my house because I was still living at home. I still had medical problems with my foot, and I didn't know what I was going to do. I actually thought I was going to be homeless because my parents would have kicked me out. So I made a decision at that point saying, you know what? I'm going to go out. I'm going to get student loans. I'm going to major in English because, I think I could do good in that. I've always liked reading. Writing comes fairly easy, and I know I can find a job. I didn't know if it was going to work out. So I took that leap, got the loans. I wrote a physical contract that I signed with my parents saying, look, let me live here at home for 2 years, and I will be done with my bachelor's degree in a year and a half, and I will be out. And I did. And I did that for, purposes of survival. And I thought, you know what? I still love art. I still love this entire field. I will get back to it someday. I will do it on my own terms because I don't like Hollywood. Worked for a studio, just I don't fit in. I will do it my way. And so I spent the last 10 years as an English teacher trying to fight back to getting to that. And then now being part of the maker community and making YouTube videos, I've finally been able to transition back into this world a little bit. And then this year teaching video production. So it's been a 10-year circle to get back to this point. Because even 2 or 3 years ago, I was ready to quit teaching. I hated my job every moment getting up, or every day getting up. Part of it was like personal problems too because of medical with my leg and everything else. But I was ready for another huge pivot. And it was tough because the only pivots I could make were, okay, go into administration, which I completely detest, or go into private consulting or something else and uproot my family and not know what I was going to do. So a couple of major pivots. And like I said, I think there's a small leap of faith each time you do that. And sometimes you have to kind of bridge that gap that way, especially if you might want to get into something or try something that you don't have complete experience doing. Yeah.
I just read I don't know where I read it. It was something like the advantage millennials have in the workplace, whereas if over, people our age, hate that term, that if they're in the workplace and someone comes up, oh, I need this done, and so they go, oh, okay, they have no idea how to do it, they take it on and Google how to do it real quick and then get it done. And I mean that's I don't know how many places that works in.
Because I had to do it at Lockheed.
Yeah, the point of the article was a lot of the older generation doesn't do that.
Yeah, and
that might be going older than us.
Yeah, we're not the older generation though. We really aren't.
So I was saying at Lockheed, like big businesses like that are just now trying to pivot into a more modern like work environment. And so, I mean, I was surrounded by people that, again, had been there for 30 years and didn't know how to type, didn't know how to write an email because they just never cared. And then if you've been there for that long, it's like, oh, that's Jimmy. He writes an email in all capital letters in size 38 font. It's like, you got to take that with a grain of salt. And I'm like, what? I'm like, I couldn't get this job unless I was damn near fluent in just about every software package, including Oracle, like known to man. Like, who gets that in a normal day-to-day environment? Right. I'm like, but yet you got Joe Dinosaur over there that doesn't know how to write a memo to anybody, and you have to. And it's like, well, we need the internet to be better. So you're young, like make the internet better for us. It's like, you don't know what you're asking for. And it's like, and honestly, I don't even know how to get you what you want. So I had to Google a lot of stuff, and because it's skills that you're not going to learn in college, because college is going to teach you what is probably a year or 2 years behind. Like, because I remember when I was in engineering school, I was learning like the original AutoCAD and a little bit of pro engineering. And when I got out of school and I was in the Army, and then I was looking at engineer firms, like that stuff was already old. Like that stuff was already been replaced many times over. And so even out of school, you couldn't get the experience with the newest stuff. You had to figure it out.
Yeah, like learning how to learn is like the biggest takeaway, not necessarily the content that you look for. Like, this is what I think of, like, for colleges, universities, like you might not end up getting a job in whatever the major is. That's a common story, but you're not specifically learning that task or that field per se. You're learning how to learning how to adapt and pivot, hopefully, by the time you get out, so that you can be flexible and not so rigid like a lot of the people that are in previous generations. They're stuck in their ways. That's just how it always has been for each previous generation. They get aged out. So
be like water, my friend.
yes.
I always go back to that clip. In his voice too.
Yeah. Like I had to pivot a couple times. Getting out of the military, like I knew that I had all this training in avionics and aviation and troubleshooting aircraft, and sure I could get a job at an airport or something, but that's not what I wanted to do. So there's, the one leap of faith there that I had to kind of go and decide, hey, I wanted to do some computer animation stuff. We'll move to Raleigh. We'd never been there before, and similar story to some of the stuff you've already said, Sean, in many ways. I tried, graduated the school, looked for a couple years trying to get a job in it, went to different conventions in California and SIGGRAPH, and it was just, the timing was not right, for what I wanted to do. And so while I was there, I ended up picking up skills in computer, like troubleshooting, because I worked at Best Buy. So I had to basically pivot off of what started as a hobby in the Navy, learning to troubleshoot computers and build computers. That ended up being my pivot into the next job that I had for 5 years, is troubleshooting people's computers and working at Geek Squad. And I was at Best Buy before it was even named Geek Squad, in the computer repair. Everybody wore black shirts and worked behind the counter, like little minions behind the curtain kind of thing. And so, like, quite often I would use what started as a hobby and end up having to lean on that more and more to pivot out of the previous career or job. Then I didn't want to do the computer repair anymore. I had realized that I was there for 5 years, and I was there longer than I was in the Navy for, which when you're in the military, it feels like the time is just dragging on. That's how I felt. Oh, 4 years. Oh, I got another year of this BS. Oh, blah, blah, blah. But then when you're done, you're like, man, that was, it went by fast in many retrospect. And when I had that realization that I was at Best Buy for a longer period of time than I was in the Navy, which felt like an eternity, I was like, that's not right. I don't want that to be my story. I don't want to do this forever. I mean, I had it to where I had like KVM switches hooked up to, like, I could troubleshoot 15 computers at one time with like 3 monitors. And I was doing that at Best Buy. I got to the point where I felt I could not get any better at this task than I am right now. And I'm bored.
Yeah, that's
a big one.
Yeah.
Yes.
Like we would get a backlog.
That's one of
Good. Yeah, it's a big one.
Yeah, that's one of the things I'm at right now, because I know, like, I'm going to be the guy in the field.
Yep.
That's as far as I'm going. I've already proven that to myself. I've been, I've tried to move up. It didn't happen. It's at this point, it's not going to happen.
Yeah.
So, how much better at running a line from point A to point B can I be?
Right.
And so, yeah.
And I think that's a really common sentiment from people that are, 80s and 90s kids, because it's, I mean, our parents, I don't know about our parents in quotation fingers. I know that my dad settled, and he joined the Air Force. He hated the Air Force, and he was in it because it took care of his family. And the whole time you're a kid, they're like, you could be whatever you want to be, Timmy. Like, you could reach for the stars, and you get all this, like, this massive encouragement. Like, yeah, I can do anything. And then whenever you finally find the thing, you find the thing that you start to do, and you're like, I've maxed out. I want to do more. Give me more, boss. And it's like, well, no.
You've leveled up all you can level up.
Yeah, like, you hit that ceiling. Because old Jimmy over there, who writes crap emails, is your superior, and you got to wait till he dies, or
Mm-hmm.
It's you hit all these roadblocks that are trying to like, okay, now you've learned it. Now do it over and over and over again for 35 years. And that is like, whoa, that's not what I was promised on my Saturday morning cartoons. Like I was told that I could continue to get better.
Mr.
And
Rogers is a liar.
I
yeah,
want to
like
go
I
be
want to
Optimus
improve.
Prime. And so the other question is, how do you know you should leave what you're doing or try to move further in that field on your own? Like, because what I've been told by some people before is, why haven't I started a wiring company? And half of that is because I know if I own a company like that that goes in aftermarket and takes care of this stuff, I'm responsible for a lot of crap work that I don't want to be responsible for. You know, like right now I can say, you know, this is not our responsibility. You have to hire someone to do it, when I know that their crawl space is full of animal feces and mud. You know, I can say, nope, I'm not doing that. But on the other side of that, if I own that company that does that stuff, it's like, well, I got to do it if I want to get paid. So, because like for me, I kind of like what I do. I like putting things together and making things work and knowing that it's going to work when I leave. But again, how many more years is that going to be cool?
Well, the question is too. I mean, would you want your own wiring company? If the answer is yes, then that's something to explore. But if it's no, then
Yeah,
conversation's
if you can
over.
look back at your own legacy before you've created it, what would you like it to look like? You know, when
Yeah,
your
true.
daughter looks back and like, man, my dad was awesome at blank. You know, what do you want her
Well, that
to be?
I've been thinking a lot about that too.
Yeah.
Like I've always, and you know, maybe this is the '80s, you know, nerdy kid in me, but you know, I look at like Frank Ippolito and all the a bunch of like some of Bob's projects and just the people who do the props and stuff and the costumes, a lot of cosplay models. You know, it's just, that looks like a lot of fun. I'd do that too. But then on the other hand, it's, you know, you got to design it, you got to make it, you got to wear it, you got to go to all these places and spend the money. And is that, you know, there's a lot of cosplayers that don't make money, but even prop makers, you know, not just cosplayers, just, you know, how long are you doing that before you're good enough to get noticed, or will you get good enough to get noticed?
And in addition to that, I mean, Frank Ippolito posted a week or two ago about something where he was only getting 2 hours of sleep a night because of a deadline of some project. And in my early 20s, that was fine. I'm hitting 40 this year. I got two kids. No,
Nope.
that's okay.
Nope.
Well, I can
I
tell
don't
you
think.
from. Oh, I'm sorry. No, go ahead.
No, go, Josh.
No, like a practical embodiment of what you're talking about right now. Like I'm doing a job, I want to do it for myself, and I want to start my own business, right? Because with the makerspace thing that we were talking about doing, this whole trip I've been going out trying to gather information. Um, what state was it? It wasn't very many in where I'm like, that makerspace is not happening. Like, nope, it's not happening at all. Because it takes a lot of money. It takes a lot. Like when you bought your house, like all the crap that went along with buying your house.
Yeah.
Like that's nothing compared to starting your own business.
Of course.
And
Yeah.
I've researched a lot of starting your own business, and a lot of it is they're tasks, right? They're tasks and they're requirements. But underlying all of that, like I had to be honest with myself. I go, do you have the entrepreneurial spirit? Like at what point in your life have you started to make your own small scale like business? Like with the workshop, I sold furniture and stuff, but it was pretty passive. It was a lot of word of mouth, and I got to make my own rules and so and so. Like that's a hobby that makes you money. Stepping out and making it into a business, like I thought I was pretty ballsy quitting my job and just doing this thing that eventually was going to turn into a business. And it took me it did not take long for me to be honest enough with myself to go, are you really okay with not turning a profit for 2 years? Maybe not getting any employees. Trying to, when it says in commercial real estate, oh, this building is so many, dollars per square foot, and like, oh, rent on this building that I'm gonna have is $2,000 a month. But then you got to split all these ancillary things with like bathrooms and stuff, and there's like, oh, this somewhat manageable rent is now $5,000 a month. How am I gonna cover $5,000 a month? Like, oh, well, that this many customers. Like, how am I gonna reach that many customers? I got to spend more money on advertising, and there's so many things with starting a service, especially a service business, that we found very early in this journey that we were on. And that was another one of those pivot moments where like we've talked up this journey so much, like we're going to make a makerspace. Like it was this podcast that led that to me. And I was so excited about it. And then when I finally saw like that, the realization of that idea, because an idea is a magical thing in the hands of the right person. And I had to be honest enough to go, are you the right person to take this golden nugget of an idea and actually do it? Or are you just a big scared sissy who wants his family to be taken care of and is not ballsy enough to constantly chomp at that bit? I'm like, I cannot with 1,000% certainty say, no, this is happening. I'm doing it. I am that person. I go, holy crap. Like I have doubts. And those doubts are huge. And the idea of working for myself and not having a boss and I have that right now.
It's intoxicating.
It's freaking scary. It really is. But then it's so much other stuff. But that entrepreneurial spirit, man, that is something that you have to have in droves, and to be able to put that thing in motion, and
Constantly,
then it becoming
fuel
so
you.
much bigger than like you are forced to start that business.
Well, there's two aspects to that too, though. I mean, one is, because I did my own side business for a number of years, and my wife has a couple right now, where you're providing a service as opposed to owning a space where you're trying to get people in, and you have the responsibility of that space, the insurance, and the overhead. So I think there's two different aspects of that too.
Agreed.
And with makerspaces more specifically too, though, you kind of, wherever you're going to open one, you have to gauge the populace as well. Like that was
building
one of
a
the
community, and
community. And that was
like
that was one of the things I was thinking of is when I was dreaming about opening a makerspace too, because it really isn't it every maker's dream. Are you in the community that wants to make their own crap, and that's hard. How do you gauge a community that you might not live in, or you haven't lived in yet?
Or is that
I brought it up to my
down...
mayor, and he rolled his eyes because he didn't know what he was talking about.
Well, I mean, it's a new idea, just like a lot of stuff that people just aren't privy to. But I think this trip has taught me that you have to. If I had that desire, right? Like, what about the makerspace was so desirable? What was that drive that made me quit my job to step out into the unknown to pursue this thing? Was it to have a key to a building full of tools and a bunch of people standing around? Or was it the idea that I can share knowledge, I can inspire people to go make stuff, I can continue to make something on my own to maybe sell to people, or like to teach people that they have so much more than their capabilities outlast what they think that they can do, right?
Yeah.
So
maybe it's more of a school that you want to make versus a
right,
makerspace.
And that's what I'm having to dial down. Like, is this thing that I think I'm pursuing, is that the most concentrated version of those desires? And I don't think it is.
Like
Honestly, it's
trade
not
school.
Teaching.
Yeah.
It sounds like you just want to teach, yeah.
I do, but I swear it wasn't necessarily North Carolina West that like killed it. I think it was
the tour that we had behind the scenes, that was kind of eye opening for me too. Like how much infrastructure they had to have just to maintain everything that was out everywhere else. Like that workshop was pretty massive, and they had to have such a wide gamut of, ductwork and electricity. Just all the stuff that you don't really pay attention to that's in the walls. There it was kind of vomiting out in one spot, like all the different, organs of this building. You know what I mean? All these different
I love
processes
seeing
and
those
everything.
rooms, though.
Like the freight elevator, all these kind of things. Like, wow, this is a lot of stuff that costs a lot of money that people that you have to have all that just to even start decorating a room for someone to do something in. You have to have all that kind of behind the
And
scenes
that's not
stuff.
counting the
Right.
fleet of administrative people that they have, the
Yep.
accountants, the grant writers, like
Oh yeah, all the
all
sponsors
of the
and
other things that you need to, unless you just have a whole bunch of money laying around and you're
Yeah.
like, I want to be nice to my community and I want to have some living trust. Like those people have their names on like park benches or whatever.
right.
Like, but the returns for something like that I've seen from the places that we went are really, really low.
Mhm.
And
A lot of them are not for profit for a reason, I guess. Yeah.
But so I'm sorry for everybody who is listening along trying to figure out like, oh, I'm interested in opening a makerspace too, so I think I'll pay attention, Josh. I have let you down.
We're
'Cause it
not
ain't-
being bummers this week, we swear.
But it was a huge shift, and those shifts, man,
They hurt.
it's been really tough these last couple weeks coming to this realization that I have to pivot to the unknown. And like Sean, it's exactly what you're talking about. It's a leap of faith. Like I could have stayed at that desk that I hated, and I could have just been there and been an example to my kids as my dad was. Like my dad just settled, and it taught me that I can't do any better than the thing that is immediately in front of me, and that's what I have to do. And that never sat right. Like I want my kids to be able, if I stepped out from what I did into this craziness, that was still 100% more than my dad did.
Mhm.
And if my kids come back and see that at least he tried and he's still pursuing like incrementally, then if they go 100% more than I did, then they're already striving for what they believe in. And so it's trying to change that trajectory for my kids while trying not to highlight the fact that I think I failed.
That's actually a tough comparison for me. So I look at what my dad has done. My dad worked for a grocery store for 50 years. It's the only job he ever had. In fact, I think over 50 years. In fact, he retired, moved to Vegas, and now he's working again, almost full time again. And so he worked in the produce department for over 50 years. That's the only job he's ever had. He'd been in management in the grocery store for a short period of time. Too stressful, didn't like it, just dropped back down. And I'm envious of him to a certain degree because he was able to help raise a family on that, be around for a lot of things. He didn't have a lot of control over his schedule, what days he worked. He missed a lot, holidays sometimes. But when he got off of work and came home, he was home. I have to take work home with me every day. I gave myself homework for the rest of my life, and that's not including all the other things I'm trying to do on the side. And so it's kind of a struggle for me sometimes, wondering if I'm actually better off. Did I make a better decision? I don't know if I'd be able to raise a family on a grocery store salary anymore, since the things are different. But I don't.
Well, that's the same thing as
it's a strange
both parents
quandary.
have to work.
Well, both my parents worked anyways. I mean, that wasn't even the same kind of comparison. And I'm working, and my wife's really only working part time, so it's even worse. But then I'm also saddled with student loan debt, medical debt, and all these other things. And I'm looking by comparison, just for interest sake, and wondering if that was actually the better decision, if I am better off, even though I have a degree and all those other things. So it's looking at things in a different way, in a different perspective. Yeah, so it's strange to know what the right move is at times.
And it's
think
hard at
we
this
all need
point
this.
because you've been established in something for so long.
Yeah.
But I found now that I don't have anything tying me down. I can go and actually pursue those things I want to do. So if I'm looking for jobs, right, if I'm perusing things, I'm looking for makerspace type teaching, whatever type jobs. And it's really hard to, and that was kind of the question I was going for you, like with having a background in project management or like military contracting or whatever, like I have, like I don't want to do any of that anymore. I want to do something completely different. And so my resume looked like, well, you don't meet any of these qualifications. And I'm like, well, yeah, I kind of get that. But you're going to have to start out at like an entry level position, the bottom rung on the ladder you want to be on, rather than, the middle to upper ladder or rung on a ladder you don't want to be on.
Actually, I think I disagree with that outlook.
I hope so.
Given your background.
I hope
No,
it's not correct.
No, I mean, seriously, the way I would look at it is, okay, so given your background and you have expertise in it, I would say apply that to a company or industry that you actually care about or have a passion about. because there are so many industries and in like individual businesses out there that would benefit from being streamlined. Because I guarantee you that they are not being run that well, and bringing someone like you in can actually help them tremendously. You just
And
got to go
those
digging
jobs
for
do
that now.
exist,
Yeah.
but a lot of those jobs or those positions. So I've got this dichotomy. I've got the project management kind of stuff that I know, like you're saying, I know is available. A lot of people want expertise in their particular project set. And so if I don't want to do defense contracting, you want to do like healthcare is a really big one. Man, if you are in project management or any kind of continuous improvement, you look to the healthcare industry and they are rampant. But it's like must be, fluid in that world.
Mm-hmm.
And some people yes and some people no.
Well, that one's
Or
tough because it's more regulated, though. I mean, I think you could narrow it down from there.
administratively not so much, but it's job, man. If you guys haven't looked at a job description lately, like it is written for this mythical person. Like
Yeah.
every
I
job
just
description must be
installed
written
the
for-
Monster app on my phone, and I'm looking at that like, nope.
And that's
Nope.
why you almost have to lie or embellish. I shouldn't say lie, but you do have
You
to
have
set
to
yourself.
highlight. That's what they call it. You highlight
You have to
those.
select.
But it's, I mean, making jobs. So it's, they're the makerspace. So I applied for the College of William and Mary for their makerspace director. And it's like, you need to be fluent in all these things. I'm like, boom. Like anybody that I know in the maker community has experience in, shop working tools, CNCs, 3D printer, like those things that you would think of in a makerspace environment. It's like, must have master's degree. I'm like, I'm freaking glad I got that master's degree.
Mm-hmm.
But there are so many people that may be qualified or have all those skills but don't meet some random outlying like qualification.
What were some other things that it listed on that William and Mary job that you didn't have to explain why? Have you even gotten a nibble from that or anything?
No, I've called them back.
Yeah.
But I haven't got a response back yet.
So are you the mythical thing that even though you met all their qualifications, they still don't want that? You know?
I don't know. I don't even know if they don't want. It
Right.
has like an applicant portal, and it just says the review of applicants is still being reviewed. It's like,
gotcha.
so they haven't even made a decision one way or the other. And so I tried to call them. I'm like, yo, do you still care about this job? So I can either stop caring or
Right.
I'll start on Monday. But it went into, it was the applied sciences department. It was like, must be able to teach certain engineering disciplines. And it's like, well, I have teaching experience, but I don't have teaching experience in engineering disciplines. But it's that way. Like you're talking about, you look on Monster or Indeed or any one of these like job sites to try to pivot for something that you think is going to make you happy or something that you are interested in that you want to pursue to try to begin that route. It's not as easy because they're looking at people that like, oh, you must have 5 years experience doing this one job. And that's not easy to do in a lot of fields. And it's a shotgun blast. So it's like, I think anybody with the name Makerspace in their title, like, here's a resume, which seems really stupid because then you're not really focused or you're not really like passionate, like you said, a company that you're passionate about. Because you find that one that you're passionate about, they may have one position available and then they don't call you back. And you're like, well, that I thought was the one thing that was going to set me on the trajectory to being happy. And they don't care that you're happy or not. But it's having to pivot. And Wes, I have a question for you, though.
Yeah.
And one thing I've discovered the last couple of days. So from you going to being in the Navy, working at Best Buy, working with the gaming companies, to being a stay-at-home dad.
Yep.
I love my kids, but it's not having that kind of battle every day. Like even in a job I didn't like, I still went to work and I have a task to conquer. I felt, even on some infinitesimal level, like a little bit more productive.
Yeah.
So now like I wake up in the morning, I'm like,
Aimless. Yeah.
I don't know, like, what are we doing today, kids?
Yeah.
Like, how was that transition for you? Because it has not been easy for me.
It's a little different now since Samantha's in first grade, and so it's always a little bit different one year to the next. You know, the situation is a little bit different than the previous. But at first it was hard to find some sort of structure to my week even, like while I worked at Epic, we had a finite, a schedule that was laid out, work so many hours and everything. And then there was a point where the next day that was all gone, right? So I had to come up with some sort of way to have structure to my week. So then I had a certain group of people that I met in a meetup group for stay-at-home dads, and we had regular meetups at different parks and other museums and things, and that sort of built a structure into my week, at least every other couple days, so then I at least knew what day of the week it was. Like, oh, this is Tuesday, here's what we do on Tuesday. And then so at least I knew what a small amount of my time was for. You know what I mean? Like, it's been predestined that I'm going to be here with these kids. And so from there, I just kind of built upon that. So then I signed them up for different activities, and it's hard to, it's hard to stay busy, and it wasn't always as productive in a lot of those tasks, but as I might have wanted it to be. But I would try to have goals for like Samantha. Like I wanted her to be able to be good at, identifying all the letters before she was at, a certain level in preschool and things like that. So make little achievable goals that, I don't know if that even remotely answers your question. Probably not, but
No, it does, because it sounds like you
I was trying to
became
make
the
something out of
manager.
nothing. Yeah.
Well, no, you became the manager of a group of people.
Right.
Whereas, like in our situation right now, like for those employees, like
Yes.
my wife manages those employees. Now I feel like the guy who's like, "What y'all doing?"
Right.
Like workbooks,
Hey,
huh?
how's it going? Yeah.
That sounds fun. Like,
Yeah.
so you want applesauce? Like, I'll do that. I'll get your apple. And it's like,
You want cinnamon? Cinnamon? Yeah. Like
yeah,
I feel
that makes sense.
like I'm kind of, with them being in school more and more, I started to feel like a little guilty because I might be squandering some of the time that a lot of other people don't have. Not that I have a ton of time during the day, but as they get older, that time is increasing that I could do other things, like have daylight shop hours, which last year that was a novelty. That was a new thing. Well, Grant wasn't, here all the time. He was at preschool for half days, 3 days a week. So then, like, as they get older, I'm going to get more and more of this time. So I have to start really structuring my free time and to make it productive for geeksmithing, because I feel like all the different things I learned since I got out of high school, as random as they might be, like geeksmithing is a perfect amalgamation of all these otherwise dissimilar skills and interests. Like I have robotics, I have electronics, I have video editing, which I learned when I was in 3D animation. I got 3D modeling stuff that I'm able to tap into. That was back in 2002 is when I learned all that stuff. And this is like 15 years later, I'm still using 3D modeling in a way that I never even conceived of or thought of back then, right? So it's sort of like a full circle kind of thing. I'm trying to not squander is the best word that I keep going back to. Like I don't want to have it where they're in school and I look and like, oh, I don't want to be like aimless and like, well, I need to get a job now because I'm a drifter at home in my wife's basement. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. I gotta get more structured with a lot of that stuff, and definitely this year I haven't been as focused as I would have liked to have been. Here it was like last January, we set all these goals, holding each other accountable for different things, and I don't think I've been holding you guys accountable for your goals, and likewise, no one's been pestering me about mine either. So that I could have been helpful to other people, just as a little nudge here and there would have been helpful to me, just to keep my butt in gear kind of thing. I don't know. I'm starting to get to like one of those little, not crisis moments, but realization that this situation I'm in is not everlasting, and I need to make a structure for it to make sense, or else things are going to change a lot. You
got to pivot.
I got to pivot, yeah. Or at least maybe I just need to continue the pivot into the direction I'm I've been heading since then. So I'm getting an opportunity. We have a good situation with Catherine and her job and everything, and I have the rare opportunity to be able to take all my skills and make something out of it. So I need to really buckle down and do that. And strangely, I've come to this realization while watching BoJack Horseman on Netflix. There's a lot of parallels.
Inspiring.
It is a show that, on the face value, it seems like a dumb cartoon, but the writing is like really, really smart in that show, and like on a comedic level, but also like on a realistic kind of soul searching kind of thing. Like it's, if you actually give it a shot and like just look at what the characters are like going through, like BoJack especially, like he's going through all these like struggles, he's been given all these, you know, opportunities, and how he's like sort of self-defeating, and like he kind of self-sabotaging, I guess, in a way. Not that I have a lot of those character traits, but I'm thinking about it from a different point of view, so I need to keep myself in check, I guess. I don't know.
I go check that out now.
Yeah, it's good. It's hilarious. It rewards you for paying attention. There's tons of sight gags, but there's like 3 levels of comedy and like
Interesting.
depth to it. It's surprisingly good. And
Comedy Inception.
yeah. There's tons of guest stars, lots of good stuff, but yeah,
Sweet.
BoJack Horseman is eye-opening. Check it out.
Well, thanks, fellas, for talking me through this crazy crisis that's going down.
Not sure if you're any better off from when we started tonight, but maybe a little.
I think the
I don't think you're a
realization
failure. I
is-
think you're just in that flux period. You know, like you wouldn't have come to a lot of these realizations had you been stuck in a bunker for the last 4 months.
It's true.
You know,
It's
it's all
absolutely true.
a process. It's a journey.
Yeah, the journey.
Just imagine
I hate
you're
that word now.
traveling. Okay,
I hate that.
Josh, I know that's kind of a hard thing to
Mhm.
imagine. Imagine you're traveling through life on like a hypothetical map from one idea to the next. You can keep going with this analogy.
A wheeled box of emotion.
Imagine
All right, what do you,
the poop spills
you guys
out.
think?
You're
all over
good
the
enough.
place.
You're
keep
smart
going.
enough. And God darn it, you're worth it.
Good. Mark, what have you been geeking out about? Let's keep this going.
Oh, geeking out about. Punisher trailer.
Mm-hmm.
That looks good.
The editing was really good. Really good.
That looks. I think that's gonna be one of those ones that's gonna be heart wrenching too, because they're just every single, like that whole season at Daredevil when they were going through the Punisher. I'm just like, oh my god, man. But yeah, that's gonna be fun. That's all I got. Dash.
Did you say Josh? I thought you said Dash. I was like, I thought
Josh.
you're transitioning something.
I think I threw an
Oh.
accent in there. I didn't mean to.
My wife was recommended the show Ozark on Netflix.
I watched
Guys
the
watch
first
that
couple
show?
episodes. First couple episodes.
Isn't
Jason?
that the guy that did the Comcast commercials for a while? He was War on, or am I thinking of something else?
No, it was
I don't know
Jason
what you're talking
Bateman.
about. Jason Bateman. I'm a
Oh yeah,
Jason
yeah. That's
Bateman fan.
the laundering one, the money
Yep.
laundering one.
Yes, that is a kind of debaucherous, but it is a really good show.
Yep.
Like if you kind of like Breaking Bad, it's in that wheelhouse.
Without the science, yeah.
It's hard to keep up with all like the extra networks now. It's like
Hmm.
there's TV and then there's all these networks that aren't on TV. Like I just found out House is on season 2 and he's like a cop house now.
I don't know what you're talking about.
Great.
Remember-
Hugh Laurie. You
Hugh
remember the
Laurie?
actor, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
He's a detective now or something, but he's house detective. So because somebody was like, now all I see is house, but he's a cop. And they're on season 2, and I was like, oh, I didn't know that. What? And there's like I've seen like 3 or 4 other things, and I was like, oh wow, I kind of that looks really interesting. I'd like to watch that.
But Netflix had like these vertical partitions for all of their 100 different Netflix original series and movies. and it had Ozark right next to Arrested Development that also
Mhm.
has like a younger Jason
Yeah.
Bateman, and you see like a more upbeat, like lighter toned kind of Jason Bateman in Arrested Development, and then the one for Ozark, he's got a little more lines on his face. It's a little darker. It's like, oh, that's yeah. That happy fella
That's
grew up to be that tired, distressed, like yeah. But
if that's
Ozark is
not a good parallel for our episode tonight, I don't know what is.
yeah. Wes, what about you, buddy?
I'm geeking out about a thing. I don't want to be geeking out about it too hard because I might set myself up for disappointment. But it's the new Star Trek series that's coming out this weekend. It looks terrible, but I don't want it to be terrible. I want it to be good. I don't know. Some parts of it look good, some parts of it don't. It's very divisive online, as obviously as you would expect it to be.
It can't look as bad as Inhumans, let's be honest.
That's true.
I wanted that to be good.
Yeah.
Every single thing I see, I'm just like, oh no, this isn't going to be good, is it?
But it looks interesting. It's set in the original kind of timeline that the other TV shows are. It's not in the J.J. Abrams verse.
Oh.
Yeah, although
I
it
didn't know
looks
that.
like it should be, like visually, it looks like it's taking pages from that. But they're doing a lot of call-outs apparently to old stuff, and there's references. It falls in between, if anybody listening is familiar, the Star Trek Enterprise show with Scott Bakula as the captain, and before the Enterprise with Kirk. Yeah. So that's where it falls in the sequence, but it looks interesting. I don't know, it looks, I don't know. Hopefully they get the Star Trek part of it right, which sounds kind of weird to say out loud, but people that are familiar with the television shows versus the newer movies, they'll know what I mean.
Was it in the stay-at-home dads group that somebody posted an article that was like, here's the first black captain or whatever, and
Yeah.
then underneath they're like, oh, poor Cisco.
Yeah, there have been a couple articles about that. They're incorrectly titled. Giving credit where credit's not due for certain firsts.
This is what happens when someone who's never watched Star Trek writes an article about Star Trek. No, I don't. I'm kind of happy so far with the Orville.
I'm pleasantly surprised so far.
That was fun.
If you approach it with the right frame of mind and the right expectation, if you go into expecting a parody, it's not a parody. I think it's more in tune to like Guardians of the Galaxy. In the way that the characters talk to each other, it's more realistic. It sounds like buddies talking or real
Yeah,
kind
fair
of.
enough.
Sometimes they poke fun at like tropes and like camera things and like pacing. Like there's a part.
Yeah, can you take 3 steps over?
Yeah, it's messing. Yeah, where the person's like standing in the view screen, where the captain's talking to a captain on another ship, and he's like standing a little bit to the side. Like, can you move over a little bit? It's not centered properly. And the alien's like, what? He like walks over. He's supposed to be like this badass, but it reminded me of that sequence in Guardians of the Galaxy where he's like, "Dance off, bro," and it totally breaks kind of like the fourth wall of the character, and he's like, "What? I don't understand." Like,
What are you doing?
there's a couple of those moments in that show which were pretty good, but that's enough geeking out for tonight.
Sean, what are you?
Except
I'm geeking out about a show that's been out a while, but I'm just getting around to watching it now, called Louis, which is Louis C.K.'s TV show that he had written and starred in for FX for a number of years.
Mhm.
And I am so impressed with that show. One, just because I have a huge interest in stand-up comedy and writing, and he is definitely a really good example of both. And in a lot of ways, I think he's kind of the spiritual successor of George Carlin, which means a lot to me. And I think it was last night I'd gotten to an episode where Robin Williams made an appearance. And my wife and I are both like, oh, man. And what's really almost kind of weird and eerie, but they have a comment towards the end of the episode of saying, hey, whoever dies first, well, we'll make sure that you go to the other person's funeral. And of course, Robin died, passed away a couple of years ago. And I'm sitting there trying to grade papers, and I'm hearing this, and I put my computer aside. I can't do any of that crap right now. I just got to sit down and watch this.
Mr. Jelliker, why is my homework smell like tears?
Well, it's all digital, so I'm
scan them in.
Yeah.
That's what
It's a JPEG.
it's called a
tears.
stroke, Timmy.
All right. Well, we'd love to hear from all of you. Please visit our website at makinggeeks.com. Check out the contact page. Drop us a line, questions, suggestions for the show, anything you'd like. We would love to hear from you. And right there on the homepage, you can listen to all of our past episodes and all of our wonderful guests that we've had, especially the past 3 episodes that we've had some great guests on the show with us. So please go ahead and check that out at makinggeeks.com.
And you can find us on all the popular social medias the kids are using these days. I always get a brain fart here. I don't know why. I always
The
just trip
Insta
it up.
pictures.
The Insta thingies. See, and it wasn't the service that messed me up. It was our own name. That's how far gone I am tonight. Making Geeks podcast on Instagram, Making Geeks on Twitter, and Making Geeks on Facebook.
And we also like to thank our beautiful, beautiful patrons over at patreon.com/makinggeeks for sponsoring this episode effectively and all episodes we've had. Their support keeps us on the air, keeps the little hamsters on the wheel, as it were. We'd like to give a special shout out.
Man,
I thought I
you
had a
guys-
shout
Like
out.
to give a
We're
special
just
fat
butchering
out-
it. I'd like to thank
I mean,
Mr.
I-
Seth Williams for being our top patron this week. Thank you, Mr. Seth. And if you want to check us out, man, really terrible. If you want to check us out, help us out. Appreciate it. It's been a long night. It's been a long week.
I'm sorry.
Patreon.com/makinggeeks. I'm done.
And you can check out all of our own bodies of work at geeksmithing.com, geekbuilders.net, Asylum Designs on Instagram, Twitter, and Thingiverse, and thepiworkshop.com. And thank you everybody for hanging out this episode. I know this was much needed for me, and I thank you guys for your conversation and your friendship and everything. I really appreciate it.
I mean, if it was
Because
our
we're
fault for starting you on this path, I feel guilty if we just
It
let you
really
drop. You
is,
know,
though.
like
I
it
just
seemed
now
like such
thought
a good
about that.
idea.
I take no responsibility.
Yeah. This is all your
Hmm.
fault. That's a whole new
idea at the
perspective.
time, man.
Yeah.
We're supposed to be our wow, Sean. I'm gonna butcher this because I'm gonna say what I was going to say in my head. We were supposed to be our support. Yeah.
Your?
See, this is just off the rails. We're all supposed to be our support structures. So
We're all
That's what we're here
supposed to
for.
support each other. Okay.
that's.
There you go. English teaching. Well,
I'm
was
running
fun.
low on whiskey.
so stay tuned every Saturday for a new episode. We hope you have a fantastic week, everybody.
Bye.
Good luck.
Take care.
Or exam time.